Good afternoon, I'm Tom Tucker. Our top story, business on the island of Sodor has certainly increased thanks to the new management of Sodor's new controller, Sir Charles Giles Freeman. We now go live to Asian reporter Trisha Takanawa. Trisha? Tom, I'm standing here at Knapford Railway Station where I will get a special interview of Sodor's new controller, Charles Freeman. And here he comes right now. Mr. Freeman, how does it feel to be Sodor's new controller? Well, Trisha, I can answer all of your questions in due course. But first I regret to say, I see one of my engines looks rather troubled. And wouldn't you believe it, it's our favourite number one engine, Thomas the Tank Engine. Trisha, I think this would be a good time for you to see how I deal with my engines when they look rather sad. You don't mind at all, do you? Not at all. And what about you, Tom? Yeah, sure, why not? Excuse me, Thomas. This is Trisha Takanawa from Sodor Island News. Hello, Miss Takanawa. It's a pleasure to meet you. Trisha is here because she is getting an interview of me, and I couldn't help but notice that you look rather troubled, and I thought I would take this as an opportunity to see how I deal with my engines when they are sad. You don't mind at all, do you, Thomas? No, not at all, Mr. Freeman. Excellent. Microphone? Thank you. So what's on your mind, Thomas? I bet the press is bothering you a little bit. True, Mr. Freeman, but that isn't what's bothering me. It's just that, well, me and my friends have been doing some investigating, and it looks to us like the Fat Controller was framed. Framed? Well, the videotape showed that the Fat Controller used the microwave oven in that shop, but the Fat Controller couldn't go near the thing, not with his pacemaker. Thomas, seeing as Topham is one of my best friends, he was never one to take doctor's orders too seriously. Now that was his great-grandfather. We all know the sad story of Henry now, don't we? Yes, I guess we do. But get this, the Fat Controller is a fan of classical music, and the thief was listening to the song I Think We're Alone Now by Tiffany. Oh, well, Thomas. The fact is, you don't have to be a fan of Tiffany to enjoy the song I Think We're Alone Now. Here, just take a listen for yourself. Well, Thomas, any opinions? Well, I guess the song is kind of cool. Thomas, ladies and gentlemen of the press, this whole sordid affair has been a shock to us all, but we must get on with our lives. Let's try to remember Sir Richard Topham Hatt not as a hardened criminal, but as that lovable fat man who always wore his top hat and always gave the engines their jobs, and always said we caused confusion and delay when we did something wrong, and always said you caused confusion and delay when you engines did something wrong. Haha, yes, we will never forget that now, will we? Thomas, open your heart. I admit I have some mighty big shaving kits to fill. 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 When Charles Freeman said those words, Thomas immediately thought back on when he saw the video footage. As he looked carefully, he could swear that the Fat Controller had a mustache. But as we all know, the Fat Controller doesn't have a mustache. And when Thomas thought very carefully about this, he could swear that the mustache almost resembled Charles Freeman's. And then it finally dawned on Thomas on who framed the Fat Controller. The person who had framed Sir Richard Topham Hatt was none other than Charles Freeman himself. In ancient Greece, there was a school of thought called Stoicism. Wait a minute! You did it! I beg your pardon? Attention, ladies and gentlemen of the press. The Fat Controller didn't rob that shop. Charles Freeman framed him, and I have proof. Ah, my foot, you lousy, stupid, clumsy. Oh my days! And that's not all. Tom, do you still have that footage of the night of the robbery? Yes we do, Thomas. Well, roll film. Okay, and stop. Now zoom in. You see, It almost looked like that the Fat Controller has a mustache, but as we all know, the Fat Controller doesn't have a mustache, and that mustache happens to belong to Charles Freeman himself. So you see, ladies and gentlemen, the Fat Controller was framed. Well, folks, you heard it live on Sodor Island News. Sir Richard Topham Hatt has been framed by none other than former Public Relations Officer Sir Charles Giles Freeman. By Jove, they're right! How do you suppose we missed that? Well, it doesn't matter anyway, lads. Let's get over to Knapford and let's make that arrest. What followed that day was a massive operation. Charles Freeman was placed under arrest and gave a reason why he framed the Fat Controller. Yes, I admitted it. I hated him. I wanted to be Sodor's controller, but instead all I got was a measly public relations officer post. That's why I framed Sir Topham Hatt. And I would have gotten away with it too if it weren't for these meddling engines. Take him away, boys. Treat engines as equal. They're smarter than you think. They were smart enough to catch me. Yeah, tell it to the judge.